Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Kimberly Palm, author of Conquering Stress, The Real Fountain of Youth. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul.
Are you ready to get started?
Sure.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Well, you may not like this answer, but my personal answer is do not self-publish. That's my personal answer, only because I had the worst experience self-publishing. I would you said one piece of advice. I don't know that I have one. I've got multiple, but the big thing is if you can take your manuscript and send it off to publishers, to do it for you, do it, because the self-publishing thing is kind of difficult and very stressful, and I regret doing it. I would never do it again. If I could take a time machine back in time, I would go back and I would cross that off and I would submit my manuscripts and wait to be published by somebody. So that's just based on my personal experience. The other big tip I have to give people writing a book or wanting to get published is really make sure that you keep yourself well organized, because if you have notes all over the place and papers all over the place and they're not organized all the time, you can get into so much trouble. So make sure you stay organized.
And I think that's great advice. And you're absolutely right. If you are taking a deep dive into this and having learned everything yourself, it's very difficult. 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago, I wrote my first book, and then I literally had to spend the entire month of July learning everything I could humanly possible about publishing and marketing. And I was probably spending 14 to 16 hours a day for a month straight, just learning everything I could, checking out all these different videos, reading these different articles. And essentially what happened was I was able to create a system. And you're exactly right, because there's so many different things to learn. I've always felt there's nothing in particular difficult about publishing, but it's very tedious. And there's so many little things. And if you miss this one step, it can completely screw up the formatting of a book or your marketing plan. There's just so many little pieces involved that it's really good if you can implement a system, because you're right. There's so many pieces that are involved with this.
Yeah, or just trust somebody else to take care of it for you. You know, you're the professional book writer. You wrote the book. You're an author, but you don't have to be the publisher too and wear all the hats. I mean, that was my issue, is I was wearing all the hats. And so honestly, what my piece of advice boils down to is don't try to wear all the hats. Just be the book author, and then let the experts take care of you.
Yeah, I always say you have to run your launch like a CEO.
Yep. Pretty good.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Oh my gosh, everything. No, the hardest part, honestly, for me, was lack of knowledge of the industry. You know, not having the knowledge. You know, having it be the first time, and then also money. You know, it costs a lot of money to people think that, oh, I'm going to go write a book and I'm going to go get it out there. Guess what? It takes money too. In fact, all of the big publishing houses that used to do all the marketing and advertising for you, they're not doing it anymore. And a lot of them expect you to have an advertising budget and you to take care of a lot of the advertising stuff. And so if you don't have a budget, that's a problem. So the hardest part, I think, is really about the money, making sure you have a fund set aside or an account set aside or something where you're putting away money and planning to have a little nest egg that you're going to spend on your book, because it is going to cost some bucks. It's not free.
Yeah.
Nothing's free.
Well, and I agree completely with you. 70% of my clients are business owners that are using the book to build a business and to build a foundation to their platform. The other 30%, I have fiction authors, children's book authors, cookbooks. But that 70%, when I have the conversation with them initially when we get started, I always make it clear to make money, you have to spend money. And if you were growing your business, you would invest in marketing. It's the same thing with your book. You have to invest in marketing, or else your book will fall
Yeah.
into the Amazon rainforest.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. I agree.
Well, and that's going
Yep.
to transition nicely into our next question, of course, is the funnest part, marketing. So please share a
Mhm.
marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that you felt worked well.
So, okay. So, honestly, I don't. So, I've only published my one book. And, honestly, I'm not that impressed with the people who did the marketing for me. What's gone. Okay. So, I guess I need to start at the beginning. So, I hired a person who was like an Amazon expert who gets you to number one on Amazon because I self-publish, and I did it through Amazon. So you pay her a certain amount of money, and then she helps you, uh, get known on Amazon. And I thought that meant when you're a bestseller that you're going to sell a ton of books, but actually that doesn't. When you're a bestseller on Amazon, it just means lots of people have clicked on your page, and you might sell a few books, but it's really based on how many people click on your page. Well, if you just dropped 20 grand on your book and you're trying to make some of that back in the sales, think again because it isn't going to happen. So I would say if you're going to hire somebody to help you with your book and market it, it's better to just actually hire like a, how do I want to say this, like a VA, personal assistant or whatever they call them, the virtual assistant, somebody who's a marketing expert who specializes in marketing books, who doesn't just do the Amazon get you to number one, but does the whole funnel for you. They do posts for your social media. They do because the best way to market your book is really just getting your butt out there, handing out. I mean, I've sold the most books, believe it or not, passing out cards and like bookmarks to people. I had bookmarks made up and I pass them out like candy everywhere I go. I leave them in doctors' offices. I leave them in the hair salon. I give them out to people I meet, even standing in line. Everywhere I go, I'm passing these out like, kind of like I'm a new dad who had a baby and I'm passing out cigars. It's the same idea. And that honestly has sold me the most books. Even the workshops and seminars that I've taught at and spoken at and the conferences I've spoke at, those haven't even sold as many books for me as my just posting on, so a combination of my posts on social media combined with getting out there and passing out my business card that has my book on it, or the actual little bookmarks all over. And every time I do that, whoever I give it to always buys a copy of my book. So to me, that's like one of the best ways to market. And what's a joke about it is it's like the least expensive way. You post on social media, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And it only costs you maybe $30-$40 to print up a whole bunch of those little bookmarks. So it's not a huge investment, and it sold more books than the people I hired. I hired 2 PR agencies. I lost 20 grand on PR agencies, and I didn't sell a single book from any of the work the PR agencies did. Nothing. Zero. So I don't recommend that. I don't recommend using that. I recommend social media, huge social media campaign, and getting your rear out into the world and just passing out your book cards and your book things, and maybe even donating books at marketing or networking functions, going to lots of networking functions and donating a book as a door prize. It's a great way to get free advertising.
Well, and you just mentioned one of my favorite strategies. So when we do business over breakfast here at the Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce, I always donate
Mm-hmm.
one of my get published books, always a paperback copy. There's always an autographed inscription where it says, hey, can't wait to help you in your journey. Leave my cell phone number, then call me anytime. And I do that for every business over breakfast event, but also utilizing local relationships. And another strategy that I like, and this was actually a guest on the show, it was Michael Devellano, probably about 100 episodes ago, but he was talking about how he set up a book tour with WeWork, where he had the membership, and I think a WeWork membership's like $45 a month. And what he did was he connected with local community managers across the U.S. and across Canada, and he did a 25-city book tour. And obviously, you don't need to do that many if you don't want to, but you could actually go to different WeWork facilities, because typically in every metropolitan area, there's at least 2 to 3 different ones, and you could actually have book sign-ins there, and it's not even going to cost you anything to get started, because you're actually going in there. They give you 2 hours of credit with your membership, so you can go in there, do a quick 1 to 2 hour book sign-in, sell some books, build connections. But the other thing too is also being very clear from the start. And one thing that I'm always clear with my clients is, yes, you can make decent money on the front end, but where you make the life-changing money is on the back end, and having those offers and utilizing that book as the business card. And I agree completely with you. You have to be very clear on your expectations before you get started, and that way you don't spend $20,000, because you're right, PR doesn't really work anymore. And I'll tell you, I have clients that want PR as part of our book launch package, and I do it. We actually do press releases where we work with PR agents, but that's mainly for them to support them, because they want to have that little extra authority, so to speak. So that's fine. But you can't rely just on PR. You have to use a company that has a system, but also a company that's going to be honest from the start with you and tell you exactly, this is the process, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. But having those conversations and knowing the company's core values. And one thing I always talk about is my core values, my own values, and my company's is truth and service and truth and helpfulness, which we're very clear from the beginning, because when you're clear and you can walk them through the process and then they get the results that they're looking for, then that's a lifelong relationship built. But you're right, if you're going in and they're not doing what they say they're going to do, then that relationship is broken, and then you've had a bad experience. It's going to make things tougher to get your next book out there.
Yeah, I had 2 really bad experiences, and honestly, I've been interviewed on over 300 radio shows, and I'm not just podcasts, but actual like big time radio, like that was broadcasted to millions of people and all over Los Angeles. And I've been on ABC News, I've been on all kinds of major station radio interviews. Didn't sell even 1 book from any of that. Nothing, because it's just not where people, but yet when I hand somebody my card or my bookmark, they go and they buy my book immediately. They go and buy my book. So I think that in-person approach is like the best, like being in front of people's faces. I spoke at a Rotary Club meeting, and every person in the room bought a copy of my book.
I'm a very proud Rotarian myself, so I'm glad that you used that strategy. It's a great one.
Yeah, I love Rotary. Rotary's amazing. I mean, it's a great place to go, but it's just the idea that it's personable. They're actually seeing you in person, they're hearing you, they're hearing your voice. It makes a bigger impact than just somebody interviewing you on a radio show. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah, well, and typically when it's monetization in regards to the shows, a strategy that I do, I was actually on a show out in Vegas yesterday, and we were probably on there for about an hour, had a great conversation, but they always give you an opportunity, and we're going to do the same thing later in the show where we talk about the best way for people to find you online, and we always give an opportunity to plug. And what I will typically do when I'm on a show is I'll always plug my website, and I'll always give them a free digital copy of my Get Published book. In fact, that's actually a call to action at the end of all of our podcast episodes, but it's given them something of value, and they're able to download it, but then they connect on the website, and you can make that deeper connection via your email list, but also they get to build that connection with you with the book, where we walk them through the process, and if they want to go through the journey themselves, they can, but if they need additional support, then they can reach out to us. So I think the other thing key is if you are doing that local media and the going across the country doing those different 300 interviews that you did, but I think it's also being able to have that call to action where you have something that gets them to your website, where you can give them something way to build that. Because I really feel the biggest key when you have a book out there, especially when you're using it to build your business and your brand, is you have to have a call to action to give away something of value, to make that connection, and then build it from there. And then when it's your next book launch, you can go, hey, my book is out, it's on Amazon, would love to have you check it out.
Yep. I like that.
A lot of strategies. So that's one thing I always say
Yep.
is you have to run your book like a business. And when you're doing it your first time,
Oh yeah.
there's so many things you're thinking about where you don't necessarily think of those angles. And it's one of those things that you don't even
Hmm.
figure this out 3 books later. I'm now working on my 14th book. So trust me, I'm learning things every single time. And I go back to that guy 3 years ago and I'm thinking, well, good. At least I had a call to action. At least I have things in there. And that helped with the foundation to build my business. But a lot of people don't realize that because they're doing it themselves and they don't have support.
Yeah, this it's important. You need support, and I think it's important who you choose to
Mm-hmm.
actually work with when you have somebody brand you or promote your book or help you with your book or even publish your book. You really, really need to get referrals on them. You need to
Mm-hmm.
check them out. You need to be 100% sure that who you're working with is the right person for you. Not just their personality goes with yours, but also do they really have the right experience and level of knowledge to help you? Because that makes a huge difference
Well, it also
on,
makes a
where you're
difference
going.
with a company that's been around for a while and it's a fly by night that's already gone. And I think that's huge. And
Hmm.
the one thing I would suggest to my clients is ask prospective company the core values as we talked about. And if they cannot answer the question of what their core values are, then you probably need to move on. And I was actually really excited about this conversation today because just to let our listeners know, you emailed me last night and you were very clear. It's like, hey, I have not had a good experience. I'm going to be very honest and direct. Be ready. And I'm like, great. I love to have those type of conversations because you're not the first person I've spoken to that hasn't had the greatest of experiences. And you won't be the last
Right.
because there's a lot of people out there that will take advantage of situations. And I always talk about KLT. You have to know someone, you have to be able to like them, but most importantly, you have to be able to trust them and do Google research on them. Check out their records, check their testimonials, and even tell them, hey, I saw this testimonial. Do you mind if I contact that person directly? And if they hesitate, then it's probably not going to be a good fit. And I've had prospective clients ask me, it's like, hey, can I call this person? Absolutely. Here's their email address, here's their number. Because every person that's done a testimonial for me, they've made it clear, whatever you need, let us know because we want to make sure that these people are taken care of properly. And when you can get that type of
Hmm.
testimonial, then that's going to
Yeah.
make all the difference.
Totally. Yeah, makes definitely all the difference. I agree.
Well, Kimberly, let's take us into a different direction. Then I'm going to ask you the most difficult
Hmm.
question of all now. And that is, what is
Hmm.
your favorite book? And what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
So I actually don't have a favorite book. I have multiple favorite books. I have a lot of books. I don't think I've ever found one book that I liked more than other books. I have a genre of books that I like better. So let me tell you what my favorite type of books are. My favorite type of books are your books by like Abraham. What is it? Like books on healing and meditation and how to heal yourself and energy and quantum physics and spiritual, any kind of spiritual growth books. So stuff by like Dr. Wayne Dyer, I love all of his stuff. Bruce Lipton, McTaggart, Esther and Jerry Hicks, or what they call Abraham, the teachings of Abraham, the law of attraction. People, Doreen Virtue, a lot of the Hay House, authors, any of the healing, type books that have to do with health and wellness. That's what I read a lot of, and they're all good. I haven't found there. I mean, if you were going to ask me what is the one book that everybody should read that has to do with like self-healing, I would probably say to get a hold of The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, which explains that 98% of illness is caused by stress. And the reason I use that is because that's why I wrote my book, Conquering Stress, is reading his book kind of gave me the inspiration to write my book. So I would say I like his book the best as far as giving me inspiration to write my book. But as far as my favorite book, I would say basically any book that's going to help me to learn how to improve myself in some way, how to improve my body, my brain, my spiritual aspect, whatever. That's my favorite kind of book.
Yeah, I
So,
would definitely agree with
hope,
you on that for sure, because you're right. I truly
yeah.
do believe most illnesses are caused by stress. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned
Hmm.
from reading a lot of those books is that you have to have your mind right. Because if your mind's not right, then it's going to open up a whole lot of different possibilities for bad health.
Exactly. And, in my book, I also point out the fact that stress is not just an emotional thing. It's also a physiological thing, which is why I have it broken into 4 categories: physical, emotional, chemical, and environment, because those are the 4 main categories of stress. So it's not just the emotional stress, it's also chemicals and toxins, not eating a good diet, eating McDonald's, that's
Mm-hmm.
stressing out your body. To me, the definition of stress is anything that harms your body, mind, or spirit is stress. So it could be negative thinking, it could be arguing with somebody, holding on to anger, grief, whatever, frustration, or it could be smoking cigarettes or using bleach a lot, or working as a lifeguard at a swimming pool and breathing in chlorine every day. That's all stress. Listening to loud noises. Somebody who works at rock concerts every week. They're stressing out their eardrums. you that's all. It's all stress.
Absolutely. Well, for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote. Are you ready for this?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
always okay. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. And that was Harriet Tubman who said that.
That is a great quote. And so tell me, why is that your favorite quote?
Because I really believe that with all my heart and soul. And actually, back in the 90s, back about 20 plus years ago, 23 years ago, I was membership director at a chamber of commerce, and somebody handed me Les Brown's quote that was similar, which is "Reach for the stars. You may land among, the moon. The worst thing that happens, or whatever, is you land on the moon or something like that." But it was
Mm-hmm.
about reaching for the stars, and I really, really believe that if you have passion and you reach for the stars, you can make anything happen in your life. You can attract a love interest or a husband or a wife, or you can attract money. You can get your dream job. You have to have the passion and the perseverance and the dare to dream. Dream about it. If you can dream about it, you can build it. So that's why I like that quote, and the fact that Harriet Tubman said it. I mean, look at who she was.
Mm-hmm.
She rescued hundreds and hundreds of slaves from slavery. She freed them. She was amazing. So, yeah, the fact that she said that, I mean, look at what she did. She
Yeah.
changed the world. She obviously followed through with that, because she made history, and with the Underground Railroad during the Civil War, and, just an amazing human being. So I love that quote.
That was
I
a
have it
great
on my wall.
that was a great choice. Well, Kimberly, I want to thank you for being a guest on this show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Best way for them to find me online is on my main website for my motivational speaking and coaching, and my book. My book is on there, and it's Kim Palm, KIMPALM.com. Or I'm sorry, KimPalm.com, www.kimpalm.com. So really easy, extremely easy.
Well, Kimberly, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Oh, thanks. Same to you with helping all of the book authors. What you do is amazing. Keep it up.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.